This week, it is time to make a massive change. And that's because by the end of this week, on the weekend, we're going to be having the solar eclipse in Virgo. We'll have a formal end to the eclipse season. But solar eclipses are about cleaning the slate, wiping the plate clean, and starting fresh. But we have so many other highlights going on this week. We're going to be starting the week with Venus making a sextile to Mars. That's going to be pretty fun. We're going to have Mercury in Virgo go opposite Saturn and Pisces. Then Mercury will ingress into Libra, where it'll, of course, make an opposition to Neptune. It'll trine Uranus. It'll trine Pluto. Then Venus goes into Virgo too, and then Venus, of course, will square Uranus because Uranus is at the beginning of Gemini. The sun will go opposite Saturn, and then at the end of the week, we have the solar eclipse. And essentially, what a lot of these transits are is, yeah, they're highlights, but it really just builds up and culminates to this weekend where we have the solar eclipse in Virgo. And this solar eclipse is on the South Node, where it's all about removing things, getting rid of things, and maybe returning a little bit to the past and things that we need to kind of clean up and take care of that came back up from the past. So anyway, we have a lot to talk about this week, so let's go ahead and get started talking about it. Welcome back to the astrology report, this time for September 15th through the 21st of 2025. My name is Cam White, if you don't know me already, and I like telling you about what is going on in the astrology to give you guys some guidance and to help you navigate your life and not be victims of the astrology. But first, foremost, if you are on Spotify, give me a 5-star rating. I would super appreciate it. Also, the video version of this horoscope is now on Spotify. So if you're a Spotify person, go ahead and check that out. I'd super appreciate it. As well, we're still in the middle of the aspects. If you want to learn astrology, I literally have the most affordable, easy way to do it. Go over to my website, become a Learn Astrology member for just $50 a month. And there is no, what is it called when you have to like sign up for like a whole year? You don't got to do that. You can sign up for like 1 month or for the rest of your life, however long you feel like it. You get access to all of my lectures in my courses, as well as, of course, the monthly game plan, which is the best forecast online, as well as monthly rising sign horoscopes for you to have a specific plan about how to go about each month ahead. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. We got the Zodiac course, the planets course, and now we're going into the aspects. So with that being said, let's start talking about this week. So we're starting the week off on Monday with Venus making a sextile to Mars as our first highlight. And the moon is just hanging out in Cancer. The moon isn't really actually making any aspects on this day. It will be slowly applying to Jupiter, but that doesn't happen until Tuesday. So Monday, Venus making a sextile to Mars. The thing I wrote down for this, I'll just start off with the analogy I wrote was, this is kind of like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, where you have Mars in Libra and Venus in Leo. Like Venus in Leo, of course, Venus is feminine. Venus rules over women. Venus in Leo is very like the star. Mars in Libra is kind of like more of the masculine, and Mars is like in detriment in Libra, and it's a detriment because, well, Venus is in Leo. And so it's very like, Travis Kelce doesn't like get the attention that, of course, Taylor Swift does, which she's also a Libra too, which is very funny. I don't really care about Taylor Swift whatsoever, or the Chiefs for that matter, but it is a funny dynamic. How this is going to really play out in your life is Venus is in Leo, right? This is about recognition, being seen, putting your heart into things. And Mars is about fights and conflicts. And wherever Mars is at in your chart, there's going to be some fights and conflicts there. But it's in Libra, where there's this lack of wanting to confront it, lack of wanting to like fight it and deal with it, because Libra is about peace and balance. And so with Venus making a sextile to Mars, I think this is kind of like a charge up of confidence, even though you might necessarily not want to be, putting yourself into the spotlight or confronting something. This is a little bit more of like, rather than arguing or confronting someone with something, like having a little bit more fun. And, it's like killing them with kindness, if that makes sense. So that's exciting. The other thing I wrote down was with the moon being in Cancer, there's more focus on taking care of like what's a necessity. And one of the other things I wrote down too was like, look at the houses that Venus and Mars rules to see what the connection is. Like, this is something that I talk a lot about in my rising sign horoscopes, but planets rule over houses in your chart. And so when you look at what aspects planets are making, you can understand that better by looking at, well, what house topics do they rule? While the moon's in Cancer, it's literally just taking care of necessities, being a little bit more intimate and emotional for the most part. But Monday just kind of seems like an off-topic day where not too much is going on, but the Venus-Mars sextile is at least a little bit more uplifting and a little bit more fun. So then we get to Tuesday, and on Tuesday, the moon's going to be conjoining Jupiter super early in the morning, and then throughout the day, it's going to make a square to Mars, sextile to Mercury, and then trine Saturn by the end of the day. Then the moon will ingress into Leo, and of course, trine Neptune, go opposite Pluto, sextile Uranus, that whole thing. So a lot of lunar action on Tuesday. Monday's not going to be all that eventful, but Tuesday will be. And so as the moon conjoins Jupiter early on in the morning, probably feeling pretty good, hopeful, joyous, abundant, if that makes sense. But throughout the day, one of the things I wrote down was, as the moon makes that sextile to Mercury and squares Mars, it's like there's information is going to help you. Like if the moon's in Cancer, right, where there's this sense of like having to take care of necessity, focusing a little bit more on our feelings, it connects to Mercury and Virgo. So we're like, getting the data, getting the info, that's helpful. But then the moon is going to square Mars, where now we don't know what to do with that, right? Mars is about taking action. It's in detriment in Libra, where there could be this kind of indecision or perhaps even laziness. Or again, maybe you have a problem and it's a problem, but you don't really want to confront it. So the moon making that square to Mars is like, I don't want to do this. It reminds me of, again, I got too much Seinfeld brain, but there's got to be an episode. I can't remember what it would be, where it's like, you got to break up with someone, but you don't want to. That's kind of the vibe of this. But after the moon squares Mars in Libra, where there is this kind of conflict with emotions, maybe someone's a little bit passive aggressive and it kind of just jars you a little bit. The moon's then going to be applying to a trine with Saturn, where now that Saturn's back in Pisces, I just went off about this in over on my memberships on the monthly game plan. The October game plan goes so fucking hard. The moon, like a lot of Saturn in Pisces is to one degree like being a lot more stoic. But the way I look at it is, if Saturn was in Aries, right? We just got done with Saturn in Aries, where there is this, limitation, restriction, and discipline to identity, to energy, to drive, to ambition. We got a little taste of that. Now that Saturn's back in Pisces, it's like, well, if you're going to go forward with all these things, if these are all the things that you want to move forward on and that you want to, take action with, you have to understand the why. What does it mean to you? Why is that important to you? And I think as Saturn comes back into Pisces, we're kind of going like, okay, well, if I'm going to, the example I use in the game plan is like going to war, right? If you are going to perhaps die in war, where is the honor? What is the meaning? What is the significance, or is it meaningless? And I look at Saturn and Pisces as being like, well, if this is what's going to happen, what does that mean for me personally? And so Saturn's back in Pisces and that moon in Cancer trine Saturn, there is this level of like being able to, and again, it's just a typical Tuesday, or I should say, it's just a typical Tuesday. It's not that big of a deal. But the moon in Cancer, where we are a little bit more in tune with our feelings and it's a little bit more honest and it's not diluted, it makes that trine to Saturn in Pisces where we're having a little bit of connection of what is actually important to us, what means what to us, and feeling a little bit more, again, just clear about how we feel about things. Now, the moon will then go into Leo and it's going to trine Neptune, go opposite Pluto, and sextile Uranus. So at the end of the evening on Tuesday, there is this kind of spark of energy. The moon making that trine to Neptune. Something I've been thinking a lot about with Neptune still retrograde in Aries is revisioning things. When, over on my, I've been doing music for a little while now. I haven't posted too much music. I haven't posted any music this year. I've been really too busy. Next year, I've got an album coming out. But I directed all my music videos. And when you are making a music video or any sort of like video media, you have to like storyboard things. And there's how you envision it on the storyboard. And then there's like the actual set that you land on. And then there's the actual filming and the lighting. And I feel like Neptune being direct is very like storyboarding. Like this is the vision. Neptune being retrograde is, all right, now you're on set. Now you have all of these other dynamics to kind of deal with that may make the vision less so that you wanted it to look like, and change in a direction that is even better than you imagined. And so as the moon goes into Leo and you're feeling a little bit of that confidence, you're feeling a little bit of that pride, it starts to trine Neptune. And I think there's this connection of like, okay, now I'm seeing the bigger picture. Now everything's kind of coming together. But the moon will go opposite Pluto too. And again, because Neptune's at like 0 Aries, Pluto's at like, I think one Aquarius, Uranus is at 1 Gemini. This all happens within the span of like an hour or two. The moon going opposite Pluto. The thing that I would ask you is, any sort of opposition to Pluto is going to scare you. Like Pluto makes the small things really, really big. And with Leo, you have to really ask yourself, like, is that like, if you feel it in your heart, why are you scared to show it? Does that make sense? And this is why I've talked a lot about like Pluto and Aquarius is like this kind of fear and even transformation, let alone to society as a whole, groups of people, technology. In that moon in Leo opposite Pluto moment, like if you're feeling that spark of inspiration, that if you're feeling that spark of like, this is what's true in your heart, you have to listen to that. Like you being like, oh, I really feel this way and I really want to do this thing, but I'm scared, is how you die. It's really like how you lose your soul, because it never goes away. And so as the moon goes opposite Pluto, check in with yourself. If you feel that sense of empowerment, that's a good thing. If you feel that sense of fear, well, you need to like flip it on its head and feel a sense of courage. The moon makes that sextile to Uranus then, which is like, again, frantic Googling and chat GPTing of like new ways to do your thing. So anyway, late night Tuesday, there's like this like boost of energy. We get to Wednesday. The only thing going on Wednesday is, yes, the moon is hanging out in Leo, but our only highlight is Mercury is opposite Saturn. So because I'm doing the aspects course right now, whenever I'm doing a certain course, I end up like kind of fixating on one topic in astrology. And right now it's like oppositions for me. And the reason being is oppositions are inherently stronger, but not worse than squares. Because oppositions, think of it as like a coach, if that makes sense. Or think of it as like an enemy. Like a good example is in The Dark Knight, where the Joker, when the Joker and Batman are kind of like arguing in the interrogation room, like the Joker's like, you complete me. And I find that really interesting because an opposition can make you better. An opposition can make you stronger. Just like if you ever played a sport as a kid, you had a team that probably kicked your ass at one point and you're like, shit, we need to get better. Shit, I suck. And so I think a lot about that with oppositions. Like maybe it's a good coach. And so Mercury being in Virgo, right? It just left that conjunction with the South Node, but it's still there, going opposite Saturn and Pisces. Mercury in Virgo is about facts. It is about like, hey, this is what the material world, this is what I can organize, this is what I can detail, is being opposed by Saturn and Pisces. And the thing I wrote down was like, facts are changed by the unknown. And if Saturn is about restriction, Saturn is about discipline, I would really look at it in those two frameworks of like, okay, where are you being held back? And where do you need to also hold yourself back, if that makes sense? In one way, you are being held back in a way that is probably not for your own benefit. And in another way, for your own benefit, you should hold yourself back. But it's about being clear about what those two things are. If that's what Saturn's about, and then we're talking about Pisces. So we're talking about like our internal gut instinctual feeling. A lot of Pisces is like forgiveness and empathy. And so Saturn is like, maybe we might be restricted with that, but also too, where can we concentrate that energy, right? Think of Saturn as like or even Saturn and Pisces as like a dam. I live here in Vegas. There's the Hoover Dam, of course, and it's retaining all of this water, right? And it's not just restricting water to where California doesn't get water, Arizona doesn't get water, Nevada doesn't get water. It's controlling that water to make sure it goes to the right places. And that's how I would think of Saturn and Pisces. And if Mercury and Virgo is like, well, here's my plan, here's my logistics, here's how I think it's going to be. Saturn and Pisces is like, where is your like energy going? Something I've thought with Saturn and Pisces too is like coming back to that. Why are you doing what you're doing? Where is this place coming from? I just got done recording the game plan, and next month we'll have Venus in Virgo opposite Saturn and Pisces. And the analogy I used is Venus is like beauty, and she'll be in her sign of fall in Virgo. And Venus in Virgo reminds me of like plucking your eyebrows too much. And as Venus goes opposite Saturn and Pisces, it's not so much of like, oh, like you're plucking your eyebrows, stop, but it's more of like, what is the feeling that you're attaching behind that? Like, do you think you're not ugly? Or do you think you're ugly? Are you like obsessing over these tiny things because deep on the inside, you've got this insecurity? So as Mercury's in Virgo, where it's like, why do you feel as if you have to have all of these specifics in place? Why, even though you have all this information, if you have all this organization, what are you getting out of it? You don't actually know. You don't actually have control. On one level, I think on Wednesday, there's going to be some sort of line of communication that happens that is a rejection, right? Saturn rejects things. And so Mercury in Virgo is like, hey, I've got all my paperwork here. And, the universe just says no to something. And it's really easy to get upset when you get told no. But something that I've been really in my own life having to like, what's helped me understand is like, there's so many things that I've gotten rejected for, or at least opportunities that I think selfishly that should be presented to me aren't. And I keep thinking like God is protecting me from something. Like every single no in your life like benefits you to some degree. It doesn't have to be while a no can be negative, it doesn't need to mean bad. It just means like a course correction, if that makes sense. You can think of a race car track and the walls that define the race car track. The walls aren't bad. The walls aren't saying like, yes, they're saying, no, you can't go here, but it's not like a bad thing. It's like they're trying to, put you on the right track. And so I think if Mercury opposite Saturn is like, you're going to be like, well, given this, this, and this, and this, I should be able to have this. And Saturn and Pisces is like, no, you don't actually have that. And it's okay. And you shouldn't really question it, but you need to tune in with yourself and be okay with that and understand that you're still on your own path. You're still on your own journey. It's not going to always make sense to you, even if you think it's supposed to. So then we get to Thursday, more highlights. We have Mercury then ingressing into Libra, going opposite Neptune. Then, of course, Mercury will trine Uranus and trine Pluto. The moon is still hanging out in Leo. So there is still this sense of like, pride and confidence, maybe a little bit of egotistical nonsense, depending on what kind of person you are. We're all egotistical. I don't even like saying the word narcissist. Like, I really think, when I have clients and they're like, my ex is a narcissist. I'm like, okay, describe what he did without using that word. And they'll be like, no, he was a true narcissist. I'm like, you're not listening to me. Just explain what you did without you. Just don't use that word. It loses its meaning. Use other words. Have an extensive vocabulary. It really helps. But we're all selfish at the end of the day because that's just like the nature of being a human being. And I think acting like you're not selfish or you don't have an ego. Anyone who says that they don't have an ego is so like, okay, Mr. Big Ego Man. Anyway, like I'm fucking hella egotistical. Okay, so Mercury goes into Libra, goes opposite Neptune, and it then trines Uranus and trines Pluto. So as Mercury, again, which is like the way that we're thinking, if that makes sense. The moon is how we're feeling, and Mercury is how we're thinking about it. Mercury in Libra is looking for a little bit more diplomacy, a little bit more balance, a little bit more relationship oriented. And it's going to go opposite Neptune, where the thing that I was thinking about the thing I wrote down was, there's like a poking of the bubble of ideas. So if Neptune being retrograde is we're revisioning things, Mercury is opposing it. Mercury is like, well, what do other people kind of think about that now that Mercury's in Libra? Mercury opposite Neptune can definitely be some deception. If Mercury is like in Libra and it's trying to be communicative of, this balance and this fairness, and Neptune in Aries is just like, no, like that's not what the individual wants. I don't know. Like just Mercury opposite Neptune, I think is kind of confused on like what is balanced, what is fair. For example, many of you have gone through divorces, and some of them were probably good and some of them were probably bad. And maybe you had a spouse, or maybe you've heard of a story of a spouse just like asking for these unfair things or not settling. And you're like, I don't even know why they're doing that. Like that would be like a Mercury Neptune opposition. Like you're not able to figure out why things can't be in balance. So don't worry about it too much. But I think what is good about Mercury going opposite Neptune is, again, oppositions help clarify things. They help make things a little bit better. And so I would look at it as Mercury is applying to Neptune, where, for example, you might have a vision about things, but you get feedback from someone else. And that feedback, while sometimes harsh, can be fair, can help you delineate more about what you're supposed to do. Then, of course, Mercury trines Uranus and trines Pluto. With these outer planet stuff, these outer planet transits, they're more about the theme. Like, for example, with Pluto and Aquarius and Uranus and Gemini, we're talking about like AI and all of this tech stuff. How much of you guys actually use AI in your day-to-day life? Maybe more now than usual. But how is something going on in your personal life being connected to the themes about what's going on in current society, if that makes sense? I'm already starting to see a big trend of people leaving social media. If you've thought about actually leaving social media, I want you to comment below, because I've been debating about taking a little bit of a break from it. Even though I don't watch Netflix or Hulu, Instagram Reels is plenty of entertainment for me. And I just feel like that might be, because I shouldn't say I feel, that's going to be a trend as Uranus goes into Gemini, a rebellion from technology and information just in general. But as Mercury kind of trines Pluto and Uranus, there's some sort of connection to those kind of bigger themes that the world's going through, which is mostly tech oriented, and connecting the dots with that. So then we finally get to Friday. And on Friday is when we're going to be having the moon conjoin Venus in Leo. The moon will then ingress into Virgo. It's going to square Uranus, and then Venus enters Virgo as our highlight. So this is when the week actually starts kind of changing a little bit here, because like this week is kind of not that big of a deal until it is, and that's on Sunday, because we're building up towards this eclipse. The moon conjoins Venus in Leo, and the thing I wrote, the moon conjoining Venus in Leo, it's at like 29 Leo. If there was ever a day to post a thirst trap, if there was ever a day to post that banging photo, it's probably Friday. Like moon and Venus at 29 Leo, it would blow up. But there is this sense of like wanting to put yourself out there, wanting to be seen, wanting to be, recognized in some sort of way, or having fun. Again, maybe you do something that is very passionate or very fun for you, and you do get some recognition without you trying. The moon conjoining Venus in Leo is fun, but then the moon goes into Virgo, where, now you're getting analytical. Now you're reading the comments. Now you're getting to, don't argue with anyone in the comments. Then the moon squares Uranus, where new information is going to kind of disrupt things. And now we're getting ready for the dark moon. As the moon goes into Virgo, we're now in the dark moon phase of the solar eclipse. And then, of course, Venus goes into Virgo. And the thing I wrote down was like, you're going to feel a little bit gross after posting, and it's not as fun and a little bit more picky. Don't you hate that when you want to share something you're excited about and then like everyone hates it, and then you're like, fine, I guess I'll just kill myself. That's kind of the vibe on Friday. The moon going into Virgo is going to be a little bit more exact, a little bit more detailed. It will square Uranus. So there's going to be this disruption to the information that you get that's going to kind of throw off your plan. Again, maybe you post and the algorithm flags it for some reason. And then Venus goes into Virgo, where Venus is about pleasure and fun, and she's going to go into her sign of fall. Venus, it's super funny. And I talk about this. I teach this in my planets course about why planets are exalted in one sign and fallen in the other. And Venus is exalted in Pisces, right? Which is almost not logical. Pisces is not a logical sign. And if Venus is about pleasure, think about this for a second. If you are in the middle of lovemaking in any sort of way, when you start getting in your head and thinking about things, it totally ruins the pleasure. That's why Venus is fallen in Virgo. That's literally what Rhetorius says. And it's so funny and it's so true. And so as Venus goes in Virgo, you're getting a little bit wrapped up into the details, into the logic, into the rationale, and you start getting grossed out or psyched out in your head. What I do like about Venus in Virgo, though, is there's this level of disgust. And again, if you have Venus in Virgo, this isn't really necessarily about you. Astrology is very complex, and you would have to really look at the details of your chart to really understand it. But Venus, what I do like about Venus in Virgo is there is this level of disgust of I don't like this anymore. I don't want to like this anymore. And Venus will be making her way towards the South Node next month. So this disgust feeling is really important. This not having pleasure feeling is really important because it will come up next month for you to do something about it. So feel that weird feeling where you're I don't like this. This isn't what I want. But then that's when we get to Saturday, and Venus is going to make a square to Uranus as our first highlight. The moon will conjoin the South Node in Virgo and then sextile Jupiter. And then our next highlight is the sun is going to go opposite Saturn. So Venus squaring Uranus, the thing I wrote down in the September monthly rising sign horoscopes, it's you're going to try something new this is essentially trying something new in the bedroom and being I did not like that. That's kind of the thing. It's Venus is fun and pleasure, and she's fallen in Virgo, where it's maybe mathematically, maybe in your head, it makes sense, but then you try it and it was that wasn't all that fun. There's something disruptive to pleasure that's probably not all that good. The only other good way I could look at this is if Uranus is in the superior position to the square, this might be not even trying something new, but have you ever not liked something, but you couldn't really put the reason why? And then for whatever reason, it just clicked in your head and you're this is why I don't actually like that. That is how Venus squaring Uranus could also look. So be open-minded. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. Astrology is not about good and bad. It's just about the way things are. And the other part of it too is whatever's bad going on in your life, in the future, you're going to be man, that was the good times. Do you know how many people we're now romanticizing 2020, and that was the end of the world for a lot of people. So I would say try not to go into astrology being oh, well, this is either good or bad. It's not like that. It's just more of hey, this is what it is, and this is the experience, and what you make of it is probably the most important. So then on Saturday, the moon's going to conjoin the South Node and then make a sextile to Jupiter. Okay, so now let's get a little serious. As the moon conjoins the South Node, we are now releasing stuff, right? It can bring up things from the past, but it's really about moving on from stuff, draining things. And this is all in Virgo. What house does Virgo rule in your chart? What needs to change there? What would just make you feel really good if you just got rid of a bunch of shit? You ever just wanted to throw everything away? That's South Node energy. And the moon conjoins the South Node and makes a sextile to Jupiter, where the thing I wrote down was more getting rid of more things to make room for more abundance. Getting rid of facts and logic to make room for faith, if that makes sense. And so I think this is really important before we go into the solar eclipse, because the solar eclipse is whatever house Virgo rules in your chart has a massive change going underway. And you can choose into that massive change, meaning you can make it your own idea. But oftentimes the universe also has other plans where it could choose you. Eclipses can literally be you know what? No, we're going to fuck with you today. The sun is also going to go opposite Saturn. And again, coming back to this idea of oppositions not necessarily being bad, they're challenging, right? A formidable enemy is challenging, but it can make you improve yourself. So how bad is it? And the sun is about your willpower. The sun is about your vitality, your energy. And it's in Virgo, where it's kind of it reminds me of back to school season, where you feel good because you got the new notebook and the new pens and the fresh clothes. And, if you were a kid like me and I didn't get anything name brand until high school, well, maybe it was around middle school when my mom got married. I only lived off of Kmart was the boot. When we went to Kmart and Payless, I got the Airwalks. I was I'm better than all of you poors. That's how I felt. And then because I didn't know any better, then I realized I was the poor. And so that's what's really fun about being a kid and being poor is like you don't actually know. And then like when you get a little bit of a taste of something, you're like, yeah, that's right, I'm better. And then you start realizing you're like, oh, I didn't know these other worlds existed. Anyway, the sun goes opposite Saturn. Your will is going to be challenged a little bit. There's this this feeling like you, again, think about going back to school, buying utensils, buying rulers and notebooks makes you feel like you are prepared, but you don't really need any of that shit. And that's how like the sun going opposite Saturn is going to be, is like you feel like you have all these things, all these ducks in a row, but you have to understand it's just a feeling. You don't actually need any of that stuff. And so then we get to Sunday, and that's solar eclipse day. So the next weekly that I put out, it's going to be put out on this Sunday. You're going to be watching this on the eclipse. After the solar eclipse in Virgo, which it will be opposite Saturn for the most part, the moon's going to go opposite. The moon will then ingress into Libra, trine Uranus and Pluto, and go opposite Neptune. You know, it is so much harder to hold on to things than it is to let go of stuff. And letting go doesn't necessarily have to be like something bad. It could just be like, you know, maybe you're holding on to a past experience. Maybe you're holding on to, again, a plan. You know what I like about Mercury ruling plans is Mercury is changing all the time. But we look at plans in our life and be like, it's supposed to go this way, but this is the plan I made. And it doesn't go that way. And so with the solar eclipse being here, it's just kind of like, the ideas and the thoughts and the rationality, you kind of have to just like let it go away. Now, solar eclipses, it's eclipse energy, right? Sometimes it's really not by choice. Emergencies happen. Things happen outside of your control that you couldn't predict, that you didn't know about. This could also be happening on the solar eclipse. So that's something to be aware of too. But essentially with the solar eclipse being opposite Virgo, the thing I wrote down was you need to let it go because you don't know shit. You don't know anything. And the more that you can understand and accept, and again, that's what's fun about even the Virgo Pisces axis. It's like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And that's like a big just thing going on in the energy here. And so let go of your need to know, let go of your need to be organized, let go of your need to make it all make sense, and just do what is in front of you that you can do, that is yours to do at that moment. But Sunday is a day to honor, to kind of like, you know what? I'm moving away from this. You know what? It's time to just let this happen, let this go, and be open to what else can happen. Like, in order to make room for more, you have to get rid of the things that no longer serve you. That's what Sunday's about. And then the moon goes into Libra. Really, that's not that big of a deal to me because it's just eclipse day. And I feel like we're not really going to feel that moon in Libra until like Monday anyway. So we get to next week. The sun's going to go into Libra. It's going to, again, go opposite Neptune, trine Uranus, trine Pluto. But here's the thing about next week. Mars goes into Scorpio. The lock-in starts next week. All online, everyone's talking about the September through December lock-in arc. It's not September. This is eclipse season. This is just shit is just changing. Next week starts it though. When Mars goes into Scorpio, we are absolutely getting invested and focused. So let this week be this week. Let this week change some stuff. Let this week be exhausting. Let this week be draining, because it will be. Like, it's a waning moon. We're getting ready to this eclipse. If you're low energy, you're okay. You're gonna survive. But next week, that's when we start locking in. So with that being said, I love and appreciate you guys. What should I have you guys comment? My sister sent me, what's that rock that you slide in that Canadian game? It's like everyone does the broom sweep thing, and it's like this gliding rock. It's like the stone. Comment that if you even know what the hell I'm talking about, if you made it this far. And comment that, and I'll see you guys next week.